Welcome back to Global Trade and Politics class. This is the ninth module, and we'll be discussing on contemporary issues in global trade and politics. This module actually talks or explores the pressing issue which affects global trade and politics dynamics. This includes key topics like or issues like COVID-19 pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war, and US-China trade tension, and also the post-Brexit reconfiguration. These events highlight the interconnectedness of global economies and the importance of political decision-making in reshaping economic outcome. Starting with the COVID-19 and the global trade, we see that the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic at at about the close of the end of 2019 and its global escalation in early 2020 triggered one of the most significant disruption to international trade in modern history. So as countries implemented emergency health protocols. There are the likes of traveling restriction. There is total lockdown at some point places and actually partial one at some other places, and other containment measures. Global supply chain were strained, trade flow were interrupted, and economic uncertainty soared. And the immediate effect of this are summarized into three parts for this presentation, and it's the dual shock. The first one is the dual shocks. The pandemic caused simultaneous supply and demand shock, leading to factory shutdown and reduced consumer spending globally. Also, another very immediate impact is the logistic bottleneck, where ports faced congestion, shipping containers were scarce, and flights were cancelled, causing severe delay and increased costs for time-sensitive industries. Time-sensitive industry, rather. Also, another impact is the border closure. And when they close border, it actually affects transactions for some of the nations that actually uses such, and countries impose export ban and essential goods like PPE and medical supplies, disrupting trade network and increasing tension among partners. What impact does COVID-19 have on global supply chain? Yes, we've talked about the general one, the immediate one, and we need to see how it actually impacts global supply chain. And the first one is the structural weakness exposed. And this is the reliance on single source suppliers and just-in-time production system, which led to widespread shortage of economic losses. Also, we talked about the strategic shifts, that is firm and government pursued reshoring and nearshoring to enhance national resilience and reduce exposure to external shock. And lastly, another impact on global supply chain is the digitalization acceleration. That is, company invested in blockchain, AI, and predictive analytics to improve transparency and resilience in their supply chain. And these are the few impacts that COVID-19 have on global supply chain. In terms of the trade policy response, what are the actual response that the trade policy gave to COVID-19? We have the likes of rising protectionism, national stimulus package, and also multilateral cooperation When we talk about rise in protectionism, over 80 countries imposed temporary export restrictions, which reflected a shift away from liberal trade. Also, the national stimulus package, large-scale um, fiscal responses stabilized domestic markets, but sometimes distorted international competition. And for multilateral cooperation, organizations like the WTO and WHO called for open trade, but the pandemic exposed weaknesses in enforcing compliance. So these are actually the trade policy responses to um, COVID-19, and this actually opened up um, the trade, uh, global trade, the aspects that did not, global trade has not been doing well, and the aspects that need to be worked on. Another issue is the Russia-Ukraine war. And when we talk about the Russia-Ukraine war, actually it's fled into full-scale invasion in the early 2022, and it represents not only a geopolitical and humanitarian crisis, but also a major disruptor of global trade network and supply chain. And the conflict has rippled across economies worldwide, affecting availability, costs, um, and movement of essential commodities, raw materials, and manufactured goods that are actually common to that in terms of import and export. It's actually affected it. It caused a ripple effect across the economies, not just for the two of them, but also globally also. And what is Russia's role in this? Russia is a major global supplier of crude oil, natural gas, lithium, nickel, and fertilizer. So the disruption to this export have far-reaching consequences for energy markets, automotive, electronic, and global food production. And for Ukraine, Ukraine is the bread basket of Europe, a top exporter of wheat, corn, and sunflower oil. So it also supply iron, steel, and neon gas for semiconductors. Its Black Sea ports are critical logistic corridors also. You see how these two countries have been blessed with so many things that the countries that depended on them will have to suffer for this war that is ongoing. So the Russia-Ukraine war is actually a serious issue that we need to look into when we talk about global trade. What has been the impact of Russia-Ukraine war on supply chain? The first one is the food supply disruption. That is the blockage of Ukrainian Black Sea ports, severely interrupted grain exports, leading to acute shortage and sharp surges in global food prices, increasing food insecurity and worsening food insecurity. Also, it has impact on the energy market in terms of volatility, reduced Russian gas supplies to Europe caused severe energy shortages at, and record high prices, so impacting industrial production and global inflation. And lastly, it also have impact on the manufacturing and technology sector, whereby a disruption to Ukraine's new gas and Russia's metal worsened semiconductor shortages and delayed production in automotive and electronic industries. Another aspect is the US-China trade relation. And when we talk about the US-China trade relation, we will see the economic interdependence that since the late 1970s, bilateral trade expanded exponentially, benefiting both nations with affordable goods for the US and export-led growth to China. Um, Persistent US trade deficit actually fueled accusation of unfair practices, leading to a trade war with tariff on hundreds of billions of dollars of goods. And this is actually serious. So relation intertwined with technology and security, leading to US restriction on China company and China pursuit of self-resilience is in critical technology. So because of the trade, we could see trade war coming forth between US and China based on their relationship. And this is actually intertwined with the relationship is actually intertwined with technology and security. And this led to US restriction on China, um, the Chinese companies, and China's pursuit of self-reliance in critical technologies. So you see that it's also a major issue that needs to be looked into. And lastly, the last issue we'll be looking at is the post-Brexit trade politics. And Brexit is fundamentally altered the UK's trade relation, ending its participation in the EU's um, single market and custom union. So the UK, European Union trade, and the um, cooperation agreement established zero tariff, zero quota trade for goods, but introduced new custom check and regulatory barrier, particularly affecting Northern Ireland. And the UK is pursuing independent trade agreements globally, aiming to diversify partnership. However, reintroduction of border checks has caused delay and increased costs. So Brexit has also fueled political ramifications, including renewed call for Scottish independence and tension over the Northern Ireland Protocol. So it's also a matter, and you see that it's the resultant effect of this is um, border checks have caused delay and increased cost, and it's actually an issue in global trade. In conclusion, contemporary issues in global trade and politics, such as COVID-19, the Russian-Ukraine war, the US-China trade tension, and the post-Brexit adjustment have reshaped the global economic landscape. And this event exposed vulnerability in supply chain and also intensified geopolitical rivalries and prompted the nation to prioritize resilience over efficiency. So there is need for global trade um, to ensure adaptive strategies, diversified supply chain, and strong multilateral cooperation to navigate an increasingly uncertain and politicized environments. Our next module, which is the last module, we will be talking about the future of global trade and political economy, the future of global trade and political economy. Thank you.